Chapter 1. The mirrors in the Villa Moretti were all covered with black cloth, every single one. Lorenzo Moretti did not need a reflection to know what he looked like. He felt it every day. The tight, puckered skin on the left side of his face, the way his lip pulled slightly at the corner, the darkness where his left eye used to be sharp and blue, now hidden behind a black leather patch. 3 years ago, Lorenzo was the Prince of Palermo. He was the man women whispered about in church and men feared in the streets. He was handsome. He was arrogant. He was invincible. Then came the car bomb. Fire does not care about your bank account. Fire does not care about your power. It only cares about what it can consume. Lorenzo stood in his study, staring out the window at the rain. He wore a mask made of matte black porcelain that covered half his face. He wore it not for himself, but for the world, to spare them the horror. He remembered the day he woke up in the ICU. He remembered Isabella standing at the foot of the bed. Isabella, the woman he was supposed to marry, the woman who claimed to love his soul. She had taken one look at his bandaged, ruined face. She didn't cry. She didn't reach for his hand. She vomited, right there on the ICU floor. Isabella. I can't do this, Lorenzo. Isabella. Look at you. You're a monster. Isabella. How am I supposed to walk down an aisle with that? She left the ring on the bedside table and walked out. She never came back. Since that day, Lorenzo had not left his estate. He ran the mafia from the shadows, a ghost, a myth. But a ghost cannot leave a legacy, and the Moretti bloodline could not die with him. There was a knock at the heavy oak door. Lorenzo. Enter. His voice was a gravelly rasp damaged by the smoke inhalation years ago. Luigi, his second in command, walked in. He dragged a trembling man with him. The man was sweating. He smelled of cheap cologne and fear. It was Carlo Rossi, a gambler, a loser, and a man who owed the family 3 million euros. Carlo, Don Lorenzo, please, I just need more time. Carlo, the horses, they were fixed, I swear. Lorenzo didn't turn around. He kept looking at the rain. Lorenzo, I gave you time, Carlo. You gave me excuses. Carlo, I have a house. Take the house. Lorenzo, your house is mortgaged to the bank. It is worthless. Lorenzo turned slowly. The firelight hit the black mask. Carlo gasped and took a step back, shielding his eyes. It was the reaction Lorenzo was used to, the revulsion. Lorenzo, you have nothing I want, Carlo, except one thing. Carlo, what? I have nothing. Lorenzo, you have a daughter. The room went silent. Carlo, Sofia, she is just an art student. She knows nothing of this life. Lorenzo, I need a wife, Carlo. I need a son. And since no woman will willingly marry a monster, I must buy one. Lorenzo walked closer, his leather shoes clicking on the hardwood. Wipe the debt, give me the girl. Or I bury you in the foundation of that house you tried to offer me. Carlo looked at the floor. He thought for exactly 3 seconds. It didn't take long for him to sell his own flesh and blood. Carlo, take her. Lorenzo, good. Bring her tonight. The rain was hammering against the windshield when Sofia arrived. She sat in the back of the black SUV, hugging a small canvas bag. It contained her sketchbooks and her mother's rosary. Everything else she owned had been left behind. She was 23. She had kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. Her father had called her an hour ago. He didn't say he loved her. He didn't say he was sorry. He just said, pack your bags. You're getting married. It's the only way to save me. The car stopped in front of a massive, Gothic mansion. It looked like a fortress. Dark stone, iron gates, no lights in the windows. The driver opened the door. Driver, get out, Signorina. Sofia stepped into the mud. She looked up at the house. It looked lonely. The front door creaked open. An older woman with a stern face stood there. This was Elena, the housekeeper. Elena, you are late. Sofia, I didn't know the way. Elena, come inside and dry your feet. The master hates mud. Sofia entered the foyer. It was freezing. The air smelled of old books and wood smoke. Elena, listen to me closely, girl. The master values his privacy. You do not go into the West Wing. You do not speak unless spoken to, and you never, ever ask him to take off the mask. Sofia swallowed hard. Is he as bad as they say? Elena, he is a man in pain. Do not add to it. He is waiting for you in the library. Go. Sofia walked down the long, dark hallway. Her heart was thumping against her ribs like a trapped bird. She reached the double doors. She pushed them open. The library was massive. Shadows danced on the walls. The only light came from a roaring fireplace. In a high-backed leather armchair, a figure sat facing the fire. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a tailored black suit. He didn't move. Sofia. Hello? Silence. Sofia. My name is Sofia. Lorenzo spoke. His voice was low, vibrating through the room. I know who you are. You are the receipt for your father's gambling. He stood up. He was tall, much taller than she expected. He turned slowly to face her. Sofia held her breath. She saw the mask, the black porcelain covering the left side of his face. She saw the one good eye staring at her with cold intensity. She saw the scars on his neck disappearing into his collar. He waited for her to scream. He waited for her to flinch. Sofia didn't scream. She gripped her sketchbook tighter, her knuckles turning white. She looked at him. Lorenzo. Well, go ahead. Run. Scream. Cry. Get it over with. Sofia took a small step forward. My father sold me to you. If I run, he dies, so I am going nowhere. Lorenzo narrowed his eye. This was not the reaction he expected. Lorenzo. You should be afraid of me, Sofia. I am not a Prince Charming. This is not a fairy tale. He walked towards her, looming over her small frame. You are here for one purpose, to give me an heir. Once that is done, you can paint, you can shop, you can do whatever you want. Just stay out of my way, and do not look at me. He turned to walk away. Sofia, it is hard to not look at you. Lorenzo stopped. He froze. He turned his head slightly, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. Lorenzo, what did you say? Sofia, you are the loudest thing in this quiet house, even when you say nothing. Lorenzo stared at her. For a moment, the air between them crackled with electricity. He wasn't sure if he wanted to strangle her or know her. Lorenzo, go to your room, Sofia, before I change my mind and send you back to your father in pieces. Sofia nodded once. She turned and left the room. Lorenzo watched her go. He touched the cold porcelain of his mask. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, his hand shaking slightly. She didn't flinch. He will. Give it time. They always do. But deep down, in the part of his heart that wasn't yet ash, he hoped she wouldn't. Chapter 2. The first morning at Villa Moretti was silent. Too silent. Sofia woke up in a room that looked like a museum exhibit. Heavy velvet drapes, antique furniture, cold marble floors. She went to the window. It was barred. She wasn't a guest. She was a prisoner. There was a knock at the door. Elena, the housekeeper, entered with a tray of black coffee and toast. Eat quickly. The master expects the house to be quiet until noon. Does he never come out? He works in the dark. You should stay in the light where you belong. Elena left. Sofia drank the coffee. It was bitter. She walked out into the hallway. The house was suffocating. Every curtain was drawn tight. Dust motes danced in the gloom. It felt like a funeral home. Sofia couldn't breathe. She needed to see the sky. She walked into the grand salon. It was a massive room with crystal chandeliers that were turned off. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. She grabbed the heavy velvet cord of the drapes, and she pulled. Swoosh! Dust flew everywhere. The morning sun blasted into the room like a laser. It hit the Persian rugs, revealing their red colors. It hit the gold frames of the paintings. For the first time in 3 years, the room looked alive. Suddenly, a door slammed. Heavy footsteps pounded on the floor. Lorenzo stormed into the room. He was wearing a silk dressing gown, his mask firmly in place. He looked furious. He flinched when the sunlight hit him, raising a hand to shield his eye. What are you doing? His voice was a roar. Sofia spun around, startled. I was letting the light in. It's depressing in here. Lorenzo marched over to the window and yanked the curtains shut. The room plunged back into darkness. I did not ask for your opinion on the interior design. Lorenzo turned on her, looming tall in the shadows. You are here to exist, not to live. Do not touch the curtains again. He turned to leave. Why do you hate the sun? Lorenzo stopped, his back stiffened. Is it because it hurts your eye, or because it reminds you that the world is still turning without you? Lorenzo turned his head slowly. The one blue eye was cold as ice. You have a sharp tongue for a girl worth less than a gambling debt. Be careful. I might decide to cut it out. He walked away, retreating back to his study. Sofia stood alone in the dark room. She wasn't shaking this time. She was annoyed. Stubborn man. Dinner that night was a battlefield. The dining table was long enough to seat 20 people. Lorenzo sat at the head. Sofia sat at the very opposite end, 10 meters away. Candles flickered between them. They ate in silence. The only sound was the clinking of silverware on china. Lorenzo didn't look at her. He cut his steak with surgical precision. Sofia watched him. She realized how he ate, carefully, favoring the right side of his mouth. She realized he was in pain. The scars must make it difficult to chew. The steak is tough. Lorenzo stopped chewing. He looked down the long table. The steak is imported Wagyu. It is perfect. It is tough for you. Elena should have made a risotto, or a stew, something soft. Lorenzo slammed his knife down. It clattered loudly against the plate. Stop analyzing me. I am not one of your art projects. I am not something for you to study and fix. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to feed you. I don't need your pity. He stood up so abruptly his chair fell backward. You think you are kind, Sofia. You are not kind. You are naive. You think if you smile enough, if you open enough curtains, the beast will turn into a prince? He walked down the length of the table until he was standing right beside her chair. He leaned down. There is no prince here. Just a man who owns you. Remember that. He turned and stormed out of the dining room, leaving his dinner unfinished. Sofia looked at his empty plate. She looked at the chair he had knocked over. She stood up and walked to the head of the table. She picked up the chair and set it upright. Then she picked up his plate. She walked to the kitchen. Elena was there, washing dishes. She looked surprised to see the new mistress carrying dirty plates. Elena? Yes, signora? Tomorrow we make risotto with saffron. Elena looked at her. Then a very small, very faint smile appeared on the old woman's face. Yes, signora. He used to love risotto. Sofia nodded. She walked back to her room. Lorenzo wanted a war. He wanted silence. He wanted darkness. She wasn't going to give it him. If he was going to be the beast, she wasn't going to be the victim. She was going to be the only thing he couldn't control. She sat on her bed and opened her sketchbook. She began to draw. She didn't draw the monster. She drew his eye, the one blue eye that looked so incredibly lonely.
Chapter 3. 2 weeks passed. The house remained a Cold War zone. Lorenzo stayed in the shadows. Sofia stayed in the light. But outside, the weather was turning. A storm was battering the coast of Sicily. Thunder shook the stone foundations of the villa. Lightning flashed like camera bulbs. It was 2 a.m. Sofia was awake. The thunder made it impossible to sleep. But there was another sound. A low, guttural groan coming from down the hall. It sounded like a wounded animal. Sofia sat up. She grabbed her robe and lit a candle. She walked into the corridor. The sound was coming from the West Wing, the Forbidden Wing. You do not go into the West Wing, Elena had said. Sofia didn't care. She followed the sound. It led her to the master bedroom. The door was ajar. Sofia pushed it open. The room was in chaos. A chair was overturned. A glass had been thrown against the wall, shattering into diamonds on the rug. And there, sitting on the edge of the bed, was Lorenzo. He was shirtless. For the first time, Sofia saw the extent of the damage. The scars didn't stop at his face. They violently twisted down his neck, across his left shoulder, and mapped a jagged path of destroyed skin down his chest and arm. He was gripping the bedsheets so tight his knuckles were white. He was shaking. Get out. His voice was a ragged bark. He grabbed a pillow, trying to cover his chest, trying to hide. I told you never to come here. Get out. Sofia didn't leave. She stepped inside. You are in pain. It's the rain. The change in pressure, it makes the nerves burn. Leave me alone, Sofia. I don't want you to see this. Sofia set the candle down on the nightstand. She looked at the bottle of whiskey on the floor. It was empty. The alcohol isn't helping, is it? Nothing helps. It feels like I am back in the fire. He squeezed his eyes shut, a groan escaping his lips. He looked terrifying. He looked destroyed. But Sofia wasn't looking at the monster. She was looking at the sweat beading on his forehead. She walked to the bathroom. She ran a towel under cold water. She came back. Don't come closer. I'm warning you. Sofia ignored him. She sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped under her weight. Lorenzo flinched away from her, pressing his back against the headboard. "Do not touch me. You will be sick." "I am not Isabella." She reached out. She pressed the cold, wet towel against the scarred skin of his shoulder. Lorenzo gasped. His whole body went rigid. He waited for the disgust. He waited for her hand to tremble. But her hand was steady. The cold water soothed the burning nerves. His breathing hitched. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you are my husband." "I am your jailer. Tonight, you are just a man who hurts." She moved the towel gently, cooling his skin. Lorenzo watched her. He watched her face in the candlelight. There was no fear in her eyes, only focus. He felt something inside him break. The anger he had held onto for 3 years began to dissolve, leaving only exhaustion. He closed his eyes. "Take it off." Sofia paused. "The towel?" "No, the mask." The room went deadly silent. The black porcelain mask was still strapped to his face. He slept in it. He lived in it. "You stare at it all day. You want to see what's underneath? Fine. Look. Look and run away like the rest of them." He turned his face toward her. Sofia reached up. Her fingers brushed the leather strap behind his head. Click. The buckle released. Sofia gently pulled the porcelain away. She set it on the nightstand. She looked at him. The fire had taken his eyelid, his brow, part of his cheek. The skin was tight, red, and uneven. It was brutal. It was violent. Lorenzo kept his eyes closed. He couldn't bear to see her reaction. He waited for the gasp. He waited for the sound of running footsteps. Instead, he felt tingles. Warm. Soft. Sofia traced the line of the scar on his cheekbone. Lorenzo shuddered. A tear leaked from his good eye. "It's ugly." "No." She moved her hand so her palm cupped his damaged cheek. "It is a map." "A map of what? Failure?" "A map of survival." "Fire tries to take everything, Lorenzo, but it didn't take you. You won." Lorenzo opened his eyes. He saw her looking at him, not at the scars, but at him. The distance between them vanished. He raised his hand, his scarred, damaged hand, and covered hers. "You are a fool, Sofia." "Maybe." "You could have run. You could have left me to rot in the dark." "I told you, I like the light." Lorenzo looked at her lips. For 3 years, he had not been touched. For 3 years, he had not been kissed. He felt a hunger rise up in him that had nothing to do with food. "If you don't leave this room right now, I am going to kiss you. And if I kiss you, I will never let you go." Sofia didn't move. She leaned in closer. "Then don't let go." Lorenzo groaned, a low sound of surrender. He grabbed the back of her neck and pulled her to him. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate. It was the kiss of a starving man tasting bread for the first time. Sofia kissed him back, her fingers tangling in his dark hair. The storm raged outside. The thunder shook the walls. But inside the room, the monster was gone. There was only a man, and the woman who had brought him back to life.
Chapter 4. The Villa Moretti had changed. The curtains were open, the mirrors were uncovered. The smell of dust was replaced by the smell of fresh bread and jasmine flowers. Lorenzo Moretti was still a dangerous man. He was still feared, but he was no longer a ghost. He walked through the house without his mask. His scars were still there, red and jagged against his skin, but he no longer hid them from Sofia. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Lorenzo was in the city, meeting with his capos. Sofia was in the garden, painting the lemon trees. She was happy. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. Then she heard the crunch of gravel. A car pulled up to the front gates, a sleek silver convertible. Sofia stood up, wiping paint on her apron. She expected Lorenzo. Instead, a woman stepped out of the car. She was stunning. Blonde hair that fell like liquid gold, a white designer suit that cost more than Sofia's father's house. It was Isabella, the woman from the photographs, the woman who had left him to die. Sofia's heart hammered in her chest. Isabella walked up the steps, removing her sunglasses. She looked at Sofia with a sneer. "You must be the help. Is Lorenzo home?" Sofia straightened her back.
I am not the help. I am his wife." Isabella paused. She looked at Sofia up and down, her eyes lingering on the paint-stained apron and the messy curls. She laughed. It was a cold, tinkling sound. "Oh, I see. He bought a peasant. How quaint. He always did have a savior complex." Sofia stepped forward, blocking the door. "What do you want, Isabella?" "I want to see my fiancé." "Ex-fiancée. You left him in the ICU." "I was in shock. I needed time to process the trauma. But I'm back now, and I'm ready to forgive him for his appearance." Before Sofia could answer, the roar of an engine cut through the air. Lorenzo's black SUV sped up the driveway. He had been alerted by security that an unauthorized car was at the gate. The SUV screeched to a halt. Lorenzo jumped out. He wasn't wearing his mask. He stormed up the steps, his face dark with rage. "What are you doing here?" Isabella turned. She gasped slightly when she saw his face. The scars were healed, but still brutal in the sunlight. But she recovered quickly. She put on a sad, practiced smile. "Lorenzo, darling, I heard you were back in business." "I came to apologize. I made a terrible mistake leaving you. I was young. I was scared." She walked toward him, reaching out a hand to touch his chest. "Don't touch me." Isabella pouted. "Don't be like that. We were the golden couple, remember? Look at us. We belong together." She gestured to Sofia, who was standing by the door, looking small and messy in her apron. "You can't seriously be happy with this. She's a child, Lorenzo, a charity case. Does she even know how to host a gala? Does she know how to dress? You need a queen, not a stray dog you picked up from the street." Lorenzo looked at Isabella. Then he looked at Sofia. Sofia looked down at her feet. She suddenly felt very ugly, very poor. She remembered that Lorenzo bought her to pay a debt. She remembered that Isabella was the woman he had chosen to marry for love. A seed of doubt planted itself in Lorenzo's chest. Not because he wanted Isabella, he hated her, but because he saw the way Isabella looked at him with hidden disgust. And he thought, is Sofia just pretending? Is she only staying because she has nowhere else to go? Does she secretly wish she was with a man who wasn't a monster? For a moment, Lorenzo hesitated. He didn't speak. Isabella took that silence as a victory. "See, you know I'm right. Kick her out, Lorenzo. I'll make you forget all about the fire." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "Get off my property, Isabella." "Sandro, wait!" "I said get out, before I forget that I don't hurt women." Isabella flinched at the violence in his voice. She stepped back, glaring at Sofia. "This isn't over. You'll realize your mistake. You'll get bored of playing house with the maid." She got into her car and sped away. The silence she left behind was heavy. Lorenzo turned to Sofia. "Sofia." Sofia did not look at him. She felt tears stinging her eyes, and she refused to let him see them. "She is very beautiful." "She is a snake in a Gucci dress." "She was the one you picked. You didn't pick me, Lorenzo. You bought me." "Sofia, stop." "Is it true?" "Is what true?" "Do you miss her? Do you miss being the golden couple?" Lorenzo reached for her, but Sofia took a step back. "I need to wash the paint off." She turned and ran into the house. Lorenzo stood alone in the driveway. He looked at his hands. He looked at the scars on his arms. He realized that killing his enemies was easy, but convincing his wife that he was worthy of her love, that was going to be the hardest fight of his life. He pulled his phone from his pocket. "Luigi. Boss? Prepare the jet and call the best tailor in Milan. Sir, the annual Mafia Gala is this weekend, and I am going to introduce my wife to the world, not as a victim, but as a queen."
Chapter 5. The private jet touched down in Milan under a blanket of stars. Inside the cabin, Sofia was trembling. She looked at her reflection in the darkened window. She saw a girl who used to mix cheap paints in a cramped apartment. She didn't see a queen. Lorenzo sat opposite her. He was wearing a tuxedo, tailored to perfection. He wasn't wearing his mask. He leaned forward and took her cold hands in his. "You are shaking." "I don't belong there, Lorenzo. These people, they are sharks. They will eat me alive. Isabella will be there." Lorenzo squeezed her hands. "Let them try. I have spent 3 years hiding in the dark because I was ashamed. But tonight, I am walking into the light. And I cannot do it without you." He stood up and picked up a long garment bag hanging near the cockpit. "I had this made for you." Sofia stood up. She unzipped the bag. She gasped.
It wasn't just a dress, it was a masterpiece. It was made of black silk, but running through the fabric were veins of real gold thread. It looked like cracked porcelain that had been repaired with gold. Sofia, it's beautiful. Do you know the Japanese art of kintsugi? No. When a pot breaks, they do not throw it away. They put it back together with gold lacquer. They believe that the cracks make the object more beautiful, more valuable. He reached out and touched her cheek. You taught me that, Sofia. You taught me that my scars are not the end of my life. They are the gold holding me together. Wear it. Show them what it means to be unbroken. The gala was held at the Palazzo Reale. It was a sea of diamonds, champagne, and dangerous men. The air was filled with polite chatter and hidden threats. Then the doors opened. The room went silent. Lorenzo Moretti stood at the top of the grand staircase. For the first time in 3 years, the underworld saw the face of the Prince of Palermo. They saw the jagged scars, the missing eyebrow, the pulled skin. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. Some looked away, some stared in horror. But then they looked at the woman on his arm, Sofia. She wore the black and gold dress. She held her head high. She didn't look at Lorenzo with pity. She looked at him with adoration. They descended the stairs together, kings and queens of the broken. Isabella was standing near the champagne tower. She was wearing red. She looked like a flame. When she saw them, her glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the floor. She couldn't believe it. Lorenzo wasn't hiding. He looked powerful. And the peasant girl? She looked ethereal. Jealousy is a bitter poison, and Isabella drank it all. She marched over to them, her heels clicking aggressively on the marble. Well, well, the beast has finally left his cave. The music stopped. The crowd circled around them. Everyone wanted to see the drama. Isabella looked at Lorenzo's face, wrinkling her nose. You're brave, Sandro, showing that face in public. And you brought the maid. How charity of you. She turned to Sofia, scanning the dress. Interesting dress. It looks like something that was broken and glued back together, just like your husband. The room gasped. It was a direct insult, a declaration of war. Sofia felt the eyes of 500 people on her. She felt Lorenzo tense up beside her. She knew he was about to explode. But Sofia squeezed his arm. Let me handle this. Sofia let go of Lorenzo. She took a step toward Isabella. You are right, Isabella. This dress represents broken things repaired with gold. It represents strength, survival, history. Sofia smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But you wouldn't understand that, because you are perfect, aren't you? Perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect reputation. But tell me, Isabella, when the fire comes, Isabella, what is holding you together? Lorenzo survived the fire because he has a heart of iron. If you were in that car, you would have burned away to nothing, because underneath the Gucci and the makeup, you are empty. Silence. Dead silence. Isabella opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her face turned red. She looked around. She saw the other dons nodding. She saw the respect in their eyes. Not for her, for Sofia. Lorenzo stepped forward. He wrapped an arm around Sofia's waist, pulling her flush against him. He looked at Isabella with cold indifference. You threw away a diamond because you didn't like the setting, Isabella. Now watch it shine. He turned to the orchestra. Play. The music started again. A waltz. Lorenzo led Sofia to the center of the floor. They began to dance. Lorenzo didn't care about the scars. He didn't care about the whispers. He only cared about the woman in his arm. You were magnificent. I was terrified. You didn't look it. You looked like a queen. He spun her around. The debt is paid, Sofia. What? Your father's debt. It is gone. You are free. You don't have to stay. Sofia stopped dancing. She looked up at him. Are you firing me, Don Moretti? I am giving you a choice you never had. Sofia reached up. She placed her hand on his scarred cheek, right in front of everyone. I made my choice the night of the storm, Lorenzo. I don't want to be free. I want to be yours. Lorenzo smiled. It was a crooked, scarred smile, and it was the most beautiful thing Sofia had ever seen. Then let's go home. I believe we have a legacy to build. He kissed her, and as the camera flashes exploded around them, capturing the beast kissing the beauty, the world finally understood. The Prince of Palermo hadn't died in the fire.
He had just been waiting for the right woman to pull him out of the ashes.